Well, we've got really good weather today. We've got one of those Indian summer kind of days. It's almost 70 degrees and it's only like the 21st of January. We just celebrated the inauguration of one Donald Jonathan Trump. So that means today's Saturday the 21st. Anyway, here we go. Let's do a quick round robin. I've got good weather, so I pulled out all the stops to do as much as I could in one day before I hunker down and work on electronics for about a week. Electronics and soundboards. Anyway, these parts that you see here that are partially painted are parts for hulls and ceilings, decks and overheads, and supports for the 1/350th Tamiya Enterprise. I'm making these moldable for my friend John, who created them in the computer like the 50-inch refit and export them through his personal rapid prototyper. All these hulls assemble into one long hull that sits on top of these supports that go inside the main hull, and then the ceilings or overheads go over the top of them so that you can look inside and light them and see all the little jets and helicopters, etc., and see what it really looks like inside an aircraft carrier. We will see more of this in the future. I'm also doing some finish work on some 1-to-1 Nomad parts. I'm going to be sanding, cleaning, putting, shaping, and finishing these parts. Recreating, let's see, that part there, it's shot, it was left out in the rain. So I'm going to sand it down almost nothing and putty the whole thing and then go over it. This is Jack's model base. I'm working on that today. I'm going to do some putty and paint on it, as well as Truby's box for his 1-to-1 Wallcom unit. A lot of this has been set aside due to harsh weather, so I'm out here busting my rear end to try to get caught up. Additionally, we've got the main body for the 1-to-1 Nomad. I've got two of these in construction, but I'm only going to show one at a time. This is getting ready to have some finish putty and paint work done to it so that I can start assembly, as I'm also working on the electronics in the house. I'm also working on Frank's 125th Guardian Gate and a couple of other projects. So we'll see a little bit more in a little bit. Okay, I've just taken the trusty dusty orbital sander. I've sanded Jack's base, the top of the 125th Guardian Gate, Truby's wall mount comm unit, the 1-to-1 box frame for the 1-to-1 Nomad, and the bottom of the 125th Guardian Gate. I'm going to go ahead and do finish work on the top and the bottom of the 125th Guardian Gate before I pull those sides off and literally cut them in half. They're too tall, too thick, too wide, what have you. More to come. And there we go. Now, I'm going to double check the size on this. If this isn't right, honestly, I haven't checked. I've just been too busy. If this isn't right, I'll go to the boneyard and pick out a timing chain gear and get the right size gear and use it. Make a mold of it and make a cast and work with it. But I think it's going to work. We shall see. At any rate, as you can see, I cut this part out. Now I can use this twice to make or at least twice, to make 2 or 3 different parts using the same gear. We'll see more of this if it turns out to be the right size. Let's have a look at the Hot Wheels scaled Mako. Now I've only done a little bit of cleanup on this, but so far it's looking pretty good. I need to mask a couple areas and put some heavier coats of paint on a couple of different places, do a little more cleanup, save the details, and drill a hole and mount the cannon and make a mold and make copies of the wheels, and then add some detail here and then mount them just like any other Hot Wheels. Underneath, I'm going to make little blocks where the wheels go so that I can run a shaft through the blocks and then attach the shafts to the wheels that I've molded. We'll see this again some more in the future. Alrighty then, here is the shuttle bay for the Dreadnought. Now I've got this mostly where I want it. I'm going to shoot this, I'm going to mask this off, shoot this with another coat of that beautiful blue. Then as soon as that's dry, I'm going to start decaling that part of it. I'm going to add some detail to both sides of the inner hull and go ahead and get the parts ready for the elevators back here. This part, start adding decals. I'm going to shoot both of these sides with gloss and add some detail. Additionally, I'm going to try something new on the refit as opposed to this Dreadnought. I used clear and backlit the clear after masking it and painting it to match. So what I'm going to do with this instead is I'm going to paint these background areas white, and then I'm going to put some custom super high resolution decals of Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, Sulu, all standing in the shuttle bay looking out. So we'll see how that turns out. I think that's going to be interesting. I thought about getting some 350 scale figures, but I just don't have time to go into all that on this build right now. I already have the shuttle bays, or the Vulcan shuttle, the Galileo, the work pods, work bees. Got all of those painted and detailed, ready to go as soon as I get this done. So we will see this later. All right, let's have a look at the antennas for the Nomad. Yes, electronic antennas for the Nomad. Now, if you've ever installed one of these in a car, which many of you I doubt, what you have here is you have the negative, obviously. This is always on. This is always hot to either the ignition or the battery, and this is what activates the up or down depending on the switch. Now, I tried to do a video demonstration of both of these, but I couldn't hold the wires in the right place and hold the camera and get them to work right. I had this one run almost all the way out. Now, again, here you've got the negative, the always on positive lead, and the actuation lead. This is what actually activates or actuates the antenna. What I'm going to have to do is dismantle these. Dismantle one at least, open up the housing, cut down this shaft to make it fit inside the Nomad head, then put an L on it, and when you see, you'll understand later why I'm going to put an L on it. Because after a certain point, there's nothing in here but a nylon rack and pinion gear, okay? The rack pushes the antenna out, and the pinion inside turns to push the rack out or pull it in. So I've got room here to be able to modify this to fit the Nomad. Now, seriously, I actually thought of hooking this into an AM/FM car stereo and attaching it to the base of the Nomad so that you could pick up stereo and play it out through the Nomad. I don't think I'm going to deal with that. I think I'm just going to make it actuate in and out and be done with it after I get both of these housings modified and so that they fit. A lot more to come on this. Alrighty then, I'm getting ready to make a new part for the Nomad, but I'm going to use this old sprocket off of the old kit just to save a little time. I've marked it on the back. I'm going to drill a pilot hole, then I'm going to use a hole saw to open the sprocket up and get rid of this piece because this is wrong. And I'm going to make two different versions of this and add them to the Nomad. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. All right, let's look at some of the parts for the 1/350th Enterprise CVN. These are the hangar bays that my good buddy John made. No, they are not 100% done yet. I have to cut a few things out because they have undercuts. For instance, this has to come out and be put into a separate mold. These have to come out and be put into a separate mold. I'm going to have to cut all these out. And I'm going to have to fix some of these roof sections. See, this is the overhead inside of the hangar bay that fits perfectly. But they're really hard to clean up. Now, 3 out of 4 of these I can repair. This one I'm going to have laser cut. Some of this PLA stuff, I'll tell you what, the least little bit of heat and humidity variance, and it just starts to unravel, warp, and twist and become useless. So I'm going to talk to John about getting vector pattern to have this laser cut instead of prototyped. May do that for all of these. We shall see. At any rate, things are starting to come together on this. And we've got the elevator and the other parts in a box. So there you go on the hangar bays for the 1350th Enterprise CVN. All right, so let's have a quick look. As you can see, most of the parts for the 350 Enterprise Navy ship for the Tamiya kit is about halfway painted. I still have to flip everything over, paint the insides. I've got Jack's model base puttied and painted. The top plate for the 125th scale Guardian gate. The complete Nomad. And not shown is Truby's wall mount comm cabinet. All right, so there we are for now. I've got to start wrapping some of this up and then do some more putty and paint work on a couple of other items, and then I got to get back in the house and work on a couple things in there after I shut up the shop again today. Alrighty then, let me tell you a tale of 3 bridges. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This was the original bridge for the 50-inch refit. Worked on this for God knows, I don't know how long. Sanding, cleaning, recutting grid lines, sanding, painting, recutting grid lines. And then the cat decided to make it into a chew toy. This, well, I mean, I want to show you this one first. This one I just did last month, but it's going to need too much work. I just don't have the time to sit down and do this small, tedious, finely detailed stuff. Right now, I need to get this done and in the bag. So, I paid 3 times as much to have this ultra high resolution part made, and it's going to take a lot less time. So, less is more. Less time to have to work the part means a more expensive part. Less money put into the part means you're going to have a lot more time into reworking the part and cleaning it up and getting it ready for silicone. So I paid 3 times what I paid for this one, but I literally only paid half for this one compared to what I paid for this one 10 years ago, back in 2007 when I had the first parts made. Anyway, that's the tale of 3 bridges. Now what we see here is a 100% studio accurate set of Shuttle Bay doors for the 6-foot Enterprise E. Why do I know it's 100% studio accurate? Because it came directly from the Nemesis files used in the movie Star Trek Nemesis. Yes, it's true. I took the CG files, tweaked them, fixed them, and had my friend Pierre add some thickness to the back And then I took it into yet another bit of software and optimized it and ran it through a rapid prototyper. So I need to get rid of the faceting and some very small paint boogers. Yes, paint boogers. But I'm good to go. This is almost ready to go into silicone as is. It's just going to need a little bit of fine tuning. And this is the sensor dome, or the sensor dish, for the 6-foot Enterprise E. Now what I need to do to this is take a Q-tip with a little bit of acetone on it and clean up a couple of areas to get rid of the excess paint, but that's not a big issue. As soon as I do that, I'll shoot this with flat white primer and put it in silicone and make a clear cast part, then mask and paint and do a light test on it. And there you go, rapid prototyping 101. I've only been doing this for about a decade. So yeah, I was one of the first guys to bring rapid prototyping and other engineering processes into model making, considering I'm not one of the professionals. I wanted to show a little work on the lower primary hull of the Dreadnought. This is that pearl paint that I use, and I really love the way it turns out. You just can't even get any idea until you see it in person how awesome it is. Anyway, this is the lower Dreadnought, or lower primary hull for the Dreadnought. Going to be filling in these two holes here and here, and doing a couple of touch up on a couple of places, then shoot it with a final coat of gloss and start adding even more detail. Here's the main fuselage for the rocket and rocket girl. I'm getting ready to mask these windows off, and then it puts a thin layer of clear 2-part epoxy over everything to smooth it out. Then I'm going to add some brass to the portholes, after which I'll coat the whole thing in clear again and then sand everything smooth once again, shoot it with clear, and then shoot it with dull before I start further assembly. Here are the fins on the rocket. I'm going to go ahead and do some touch-up paint to these, then shoot them with clear and get them ready to insert into the fuselage after I use a Dremel to cut the hole. Alright, I've notched one of the stabilizer fin mounts, and if you see here, it just fits in there, but I can't do it with one. There we go. Now I'll set that. Then I'll tape it into place underneath. Then I'll epoxy all along the joint on both sides. Let that fully set up. And then I'll make sure to match the other two fins to go with this fin. But before I do that, I've got to add the electronics and do some more epoxy work. So we'll see this, yet still some more.